1st of July 2023, newspapers, news channels and social media platform was flooded with this news. The news which stated that PhD is no longer a compulsory qualification for assistant professors in India. Since the last 2 months of this news, many people, many aspiring assistant professors, many existing assistant professors have reached out to me to understand whether or not should they pursue this highest educational qualification, PhD. Will PhD as a qualification would be beneficial for their career? Will PhD be a waste of time, or will PhD add value to their CV? And to answer all these questions, I have created today's video. In case you also have questions related to PhD and how it is going to impact your career in the higher education industry, then stay tuned with your one and only PhD mentor, advisor and trainer, Dr. Ritika Gaba, as I'm going to address all these questions in this video today. So before we move ahead, let us understand the background of when and how PhD became compulsory for assistant professors, and then when and how it was not compulsory anymore. So in 2008, the HRD minister then, or the education minister as we know, said that in July 2021, that from July 2021, PhD would be a necessary educational qualification requirement for assistant professors in universities, whether state, central, deemed or private universities. Assistant professors should have a PhD, and this was to be implemented in July 2021. However, due to COVID, this regulation was further postponed to be implemented on the 1st of July 2023. So there are two things that need to be noted here. First and foremost, this compulsory requirement, PhD being a compulsory educational qualification requirement, was only for assistant professors aspiring to become assistant professors in universities. That means that faculties who wanted to teach in autonomous institutes or in colleges, they were still not required, they would not have been required to have a PhD. Secondly, this decision was to be implemented in July 2023, but even before this could be implemented, the new decision that PhD is no longer compulsory made news. So when PhD was never really compulsory for assistant professors, why did we see so many faculties with a PhD degree? Why did people always feel that if you want to pursue a career in the higher education industry, you do need a PhD? There are numerous reasons for this, which we are going to discuss ahead in this video. The first and foremost reason for this is that even though PhD is not a compulsory requirement or was not a compulsory requirement to enter the higher education industry, it was always an important requirement for further promotion and enhancement of your career in the higher education industry. There were many institutes, many colleges also, who would not promote you further to an associate professor if you did not have a PhD degree in your hand. And therefore, people like to pursue a PhD so that they can have a brighter future for further promotions and increments in the higher education industry. This is one of the reasons. The second reason is that there are many institutes who have made PhD as a compulsory qualification for even the entry-level positions among the higher education faculty. So yes, UGC says that PhD is not a compulsory requirement, but every university, every institute can make their own norms which can be more stringent than what has been prescribed by UGC. So there are multiple, in fact, majority of the prestigious top ranking institutes across India have made PhD as a compulsory requirement if you want to apply for an assistant professorship there. This is the second reason. The third reason why institutes prefer a faculty with a PhD relates to NIRF. NIRF or National Institution Ranking Framework. These are extremely prestigious ranking framework designed by Ministry of Education, and all the institutions and universities across India aspire to have a high rank in this ranking framework. Now, NIRF states that an institute which has more faculties with a PhD degree will get a higher score and therefore ultimately end up getting a higher NIRF ranking. In case you do not understand what NIRF is, then please watch our video dedicated to this topic which we had released a few weeks back, sharing the link of the same in the I above. So, institutes obviously, in order to get a higher NIRF ranking, now prefer to recruit faculties which have a PhD. This becomes the third reason why PhD faculties or faculties which have a PhD are preferred. The next reason relates to the number of PhD admissions is directly related to the number of faculties an institute has with a doctorate degree. If you remember, we have mentioned this to you in some of our previous videos as well, that unlike an MBA or an engineering institute where the number of admissions is fixed, so an institute has been granted 200 seats, so every year the institute can take in 200 MBA new admissions. However, when it comes to a PhD, your number of PhD admissions is directly related or directly proportional to the number of faculties you have with a doctorate degree, as only a faculty with a doctorate degree can become a PhD guide, and only if a university has a PhD guide can they take in PhD admissions, and therefore universities prefer to have a faculty with a PhD degree so that they can take in more PhD admissions. And why would a university like to take in more PhD admissions? There are a number of reasons for it. Number one, again relates to the NIRF ranking. Now, NIRF ranking gives you a higher score if you have more number of PhD admissions. So the more the number of PhD admission directly correlates to higher NIRF score and ranking. The second reason is when you have more PhD students, it means that your university or your institute is doing more research, which also would lead to more number of research publications and higher number of patents. Again, more research, more patents, more publications, all leads to higher rankings in not only NIRF but in many other international ranking frameworks as well. The last reason for having more PhD admissions obviously relates to the monetary benefit an institute will have. More the number of admission, higher the fees. You must have very often seen institute promoting the fact that all their faculties or majority of their faculties have a PhD degree. This is because PhD gives a gravitas, a status to a faculty and therefore to the institute where they are teaching. This is again an important reason why institutes prefer a student who has a PhD to be recruited as an assistant professor. Okay, if this is not enough, there is one other important reason why you should think about doing a PhD if you want to pursue a career in the higher education industry. Even when you are filling up forms of government universities, there are certain scores and weightage given to various qualifications that you have. And would you believe me if I tell you that amongst various qualifications, which includes your research publication as well, the highest weightage is given to PhD. So a student who has a PhD degree in their hand is given the maximum score amongst all the other qualifications. So these are the various reasons why you see so many students, or why you have been seeing so many students pursuing a PhD because they want to make a career in the higher education industry. If you still have any questions related to PhD, or if you are planning to pursue a PhD and are looking for a PhD mentor, PhD guide, then you can always get in touch with me on the number given below for one-to-one guidance sessions. Thank you so much for watching my video.